Senator Harris, I'm so sorry. We will let all of you speak. Senator Harris. Senator Harris. Please, we will let you all speak. Senator Harris.
You can't afford to wait for evolution on these issues.
Hey, guys, you know what? America does not want to witness a food fight. They want to know how we're going to put food on their table. Yes.
Because your city council made that decision. It was a local decision. So
that's where the federal government must step in. That's why we have the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. That's why we need to pass the Equality Act. Food fight. Food fight. Food fight. So on the issue of race, I couldn't agree more that this is an issue that is still not being talked about truthfully and honestly. There is not a black man I know, be he a relative, a friend, or a coworker, who has not been the subject of some form of profiling or discrimination. Growing up, my sister and I had to deal with the neighbor who told us her parents couldn't play with us because we were black. And I will say also that in this campaign, we've also heard, and I'm going to now direct this at Vice President Biden, I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me. So I will tell you that on this subject, it cannot be an intellectual debate among Democrats. We have to take it seriously. We have to act swiftly. As Attorney General of California, I was very proud to put in place a requirement that all my special agents would wear body cameras and keep those cameras on.
Senator Harris, thank you. Vice President Biden, you have been invoked. We are going to give you a chance to respond. Vice President Biden.
It's a mischaracterization of my position across the board. I did not praise racist. That is not true, number one. Number two, if we want to have this campaign litigated on who supports civil rights and whether I did or not, I'm happy to do that. I was a public defender. I didn't become a prosecutor. I came out and I left a good law firm to become a public defender when in fact my city was in flames because of the assassination of Dr. King. Number one. Now, number two, as the Vice President of the United States, I work with a man who, in fact, we worked very hard to see to it we dealt with these issues in a major, major way. The fact is that in terms of busing, you would have been able to go to school the same exact way because it was a local decision made by your city council. That's fine. That's one of the things I argued for, that we should be breaking down these lines. But so the bottom line here is, look, everything I've done in my career, I ran because of civil rights. I continue to think we have to make fundamental changes in civil rights. And those civil rights, by the way, include not just only African Americans, but the LGBT community.
But Vice President Biden, do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No,
do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed.
Well, there was a failure of states to integrate public schools in America. I was part of the second class to integrate Berkeley, California public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision. It was a local decision. So that's where the
federal government must step in. That's why we have the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. That's why we need to pass the Equality Act. That's why we need to pass the ERA, because there are moments in history where states fail to preserve the civil rights of all
I have
people.
supported the ERA from the very beginning when I ran
Vice President Biden, 30 seconds, because I want to bring other people into this.
I supported the ERA from the very beginning. I'm the guy that extended the Voting Rights Act for 25 years. We got to the place where we got 98 out of 98 votes in the United States Senate doing it. I've also argued very strongly that we, in fact, deal with the notion of denying people access to the ballot box. I agree that everybody, once they, in fact, they should. Anyway, my time's up. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Vice President.
You mentioned Senator Harris, the debate. I'll talk to the VP about that as well. But when you were listing the things, well, here are the things we're going to have to fight against in this. All right, here we are. They may not think you have this. You did not imagine, I would think, or I'll ask it differently.
Yeah.
Did you imagine that one of the things you'd have to deal with early on is whether or not your husband's past is basically bigoted? They can say, I don't think you're a racist,
They could say anything
but as soon as that comes out,
Yeah.
the crime bill,
Yeah.
working with people who were seen to be obviously extreme thinkers and bigots themselves, busing, did you anticipate those, and does it make you feel differently about where this could be headed?
You know, I think that they were looking at the past. I mean, the one thing you cannot say about Joe is that he's a racist. I mean, he got into politics because of his commitment to civil rights. And then to be elected with Barack Obama, and then someone is saying, you know, you're a racist. As soon as I heard those words.
They say you're not a racist,
I know, but as soon as I heard
stinks.
those words, I thought, uh-oh, what's coming next? And I think the American people know Joe Biden. They know his values. They know what he stands for. And they didn't buy it.
I was talking with you and Jill. You said you were expecting to have a target on your back, but the intensity of some of it. Did you see the questions about your past positions from the perspective of race being as relevant as they are?
No, and I don't think they're relevant because they're taken out of context. What I didn't see is people who know me. I mean, they know me well. It's not like it's somebody who just came out of the blue, didn't know anything. But it's so easy to go back 30, 40, 50 years and take a context and take it completely out of context. And I mean, you know, I get all this information about other people's past and what they've done and not done. And, you know, I'm just not going to go there. If we keep doing that, I mean, well, we should be debating what we do from here. For example, this whole thing about race and busing. Well, you know, I think if you take a look, our positions aren't any different, as we're finding out.
With Senator Harris, who said she sees it as a tool, not a must in all circumstances.
Yeah, well, look at my record.
But I don't think busing is about policy, Mr. Vice President.
No, it's not.
I think it was about principle. When you look back at your record on it, you were not in favor of busing. It was a different time. There were different applications. Why not just own it and say,
here's the thing,
I was
Chris.
against it, but now I've changed?
I was in favor of busing that was de jure busing. That is, if a court ruled that there was a law passed or circumstance that a county, a city, a state did that prevented black folks from being somewhere, then that's wrong. You should bus. I even went so far in the middle of that busing controversy was saying I use helicopters if that was necessary to make the point. And we really got in a town meeting that got very hot. But what the issue is now is, for example, and it was then, voluntary busing. We supported it. We supported it then. And by the way, Barack and I, as president and vice president, we provided money for voluntary busing if cities want to do it.
I'm not questioning any of that. I'm
No.
saying that when you look back in the 70s, you said, I think busing doesn't work. It's an asinine concept.
Well, by the way,
you tried to pass bills that weren't for it.
Busing did not work. You had overwhelming response from the African-American community in my state. My state is the 8th largest black population in the country as a percent of population. They did not support it. They did not support it. Look, the question is, how do you equalize education in every area? And I put forward the most aggressive plan to do that, and I've been pushing it for a long time. For example, in Title I schools at disadvantage. I propose we go from $15 billion a year to $45 billion a year. We should bring people in, have preschool from 3, 4, 5 years old before kindergarten. We should have, look, every child out there is capable, but they live in circumstances that make it difficult. For the time they get to school, they've heard 3, 4 million fewer words spoken. They're at a disadvantage.
I totally accept all of that.
That's number one. But number two, The idea right now, 65 out of 100 jobs in a study I did for the president point out you need something beyond a high school degree.
It's true.
So what are we doing? We're sitting around here as if it's an insoluble problem.
I get it on the policy. I never have viewed the bussing back and forth in that debate as about policy or application of how to affect civil rights. It's about consistency and proving if you'll be better than what we're dealing with now in the White House, which is people won't tell the truth about things. If busing didn't work, then it made sense that you weren't for it back then. But why say you were for it?
Well,
why
no,
not just be straight about it and move on?
Because there's three different pieces. I was for voluntary busing. Number one, I was for busing where the court showed that, in fact, a legislative body took an action preventing black folks from going to a school. That is de jure, I know you know, de jure segregation. The difficult piece is, this is 50 years ago, people don't understand the context. The third one is, do you have an administration through their non-elected officials, the Department of Housing, decide every school should be equally balanced across the board? That's a different issue. And the way to deal with that problem is what I did from the time I was a kid. I got out of law school, came back, had a great job, became a public defender. I fought for putting housing in low-income housing in suburbia. I talked about eliminating redlining. I talked about school districts should be consolidated in ways that made sense. So, in fact,
why didn't you fight it like this in the debate?
In 30 seconds?
Hey,
come on,
what happens most in a debate, Mr. Vice President? People blow their time cue. You're the only person I've ever seen on a debate stage say, I'm out of time.
Well, we never had a place where you have 30 seconds, man. What I didn't want to do is get in that scrum. Do you think the American public looked at that debate, take me out of it, and thought, boy, I really like the way that's being conducted. They're really showing themselves to do really well. Come on, man.
But they're going to come after you.
Sure, they're going to come after me.
Were you prepared for them to come after you?
I was prepared for them to come after me, but I wasn't prepared for the person coming at me the way she came out. She knew Bo, she knows me. But here's the deal. What I do know, and it's the good and the bad news, the American people think they know me, and they know me. Since that occurred, I had the most sought-after endorsement for the mayor of Atlanta, a black woman who's a great leader, Mayor Bottoms, endorsement. I've had numerous members of the Black Caucus endorsement.
You worried about the poll slippage with African Americans after the debate?
No. These folks just came. I'm making the point to you. I don't see it. People know who I am. I don't believe there's anybody out there believes that I have anything other than a keen and consistent interest in making sure every child has. These are all our children.
Here's the question. Did you rewatch the debate?
No, I didn't.
Do you think you need, if you win the nomination, to have a female VP?
I think it'd be great to have a female VP. And if I don't win, it'd be great to have a female president. But the question is, whose issues are best prepared in their wheelhouse? They've demonstrated they know how to deal with them.
Would you consider not having a woman as VP?
Look, here's the first thing about being a VP I've learned. And that is that in today's environment, there's so much a president has on his or her plate. They need someone they completely trust, that they're simpatico with, have the same approach, political approach, and you can delegate significant authority. The president, when he delegated authority to me from the moonshot to Ukraine, he gave me the authority to make decisions. Because I knew where he was. He knew that I knew something about it, and he knew we were simpatico. And so that's what I'm looking for.
Do you think a Democrat ticket can win without a woman in one of the two slots?
Yeah, well, the answer is yes, but I think it helps having a woman on the ticket. And there's a lot of really qualified women out there.
Is Kamala Harris, assuming she doesn't win outright, is she still somebody you would consider as a running mate?
Look, one of the things I'm not going to get into, because it got used before, is when I was asked, I don't even have the nomination, and I'm presuming who I might pick as the vice president. That's easily flipped on me and saying, well, Biden's being arrogant. Biden thinks I'll have him as my vice president. So I'm not going to comment on any individual.